Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 122 of Paranormal NL Podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Pocket Casts and YouTube. I'm your host, Jen. For tonight's show, let's give a shout out to who introduced me to tonight's guest. A big shout out to Judy from Spirit Hunters, Ontario, whose team was on PNL Podcast Season 2, Episode 82. Now time to pull up your cozy chair and listen into your favorite podcast, Paranormal NL Podcast. It's a place where the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada, and anywhere else in the world can share their paranormal experiences. PNL Podcast also believes in supporting people, places, and things to promote paranormal tourism and paranormal networking all over the world. A big thank you again to all the PNL Podcast alumni guests from Season 1 and 2, and of course our fans. We want to hear your stories. Do you have any paranormal, metaphysical, UFO, cryptid creatures, folklore, historical, or just tales of the weird you'd like to share as a guest on my PNL podcast? Reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, or Gmail at paranormal.nl.podcast@gmail.com. After your episode, you'll become part of the PNL Podcast Alumni Network. Make sure you click on the bell and subscribe and follow along on whatever platform you're listening in on to get automatic updates for new episodes. Head on over to our Facebook and join our group. It's our official place for the Paranormal NL podcast. And you can find upcoming new PNL episodes in the featured section of that group. And we're listening to our fans. Paranormal NL podcast now has a Facebook page for the fans who are not on Instagram for Instagram reel drops and a spot for the PNL Bog Team investigation go lives. That's right. We have a new branch of the Paranormal NL podcast with the PNL Bog Team. It's a boots on the ground paranormal investigation team doing local historic investigations of Newfoundland. Our fans asked us, and Paranormal NL podcast and the new PNL Bog Team merch are available on TeePublic with lots of different stuff that the fans asked for. Let's get on with the show. Tonight I'm going to add on the Streamyard stage all the way from the UK. We've got Mich, the co-director of Haunted Heritage, and we also have Gillian, the co-director of Haunted Heritage. Welcome. Thanks for being on the show tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Yes. How's the weather out your way? I was telling Jill earlier that I thought we were going to blow away the whole house.
Really?
It's been really nice here today, but it does get cold at night now. I think we know that we're going into the autumn season. So, sunny days are long gone.
Yes, it's going to be harder to do outdoor investigations our way. It's been a lot rainy here. I know there was one we wanted to do on the weekend, but we decided to cancel. It was just too gross and cold out. So do you do many investigations outdoor or mostly indoors?
No, we do lots of ghost walks, which are all outdoors, so around historical buildings, and so we're used to the cold and the dark and layers and layers and layers of clothes. So
yes,
yeah.
Do you do that in the winter too, Mitch?
Yes, and I said we do the investigations obviously indoors, ghost walks outdoors, and yes, let's just say by the time you get home, all you want is a hot toddy and a hot water bottle just to go to bed with.
That's for sure. So tell me more about Haunted Heritage. How did it all come about, and tell me more about it.
Who's starting?
You start.
Okay, so back in the long time ago, I was working for the museums in Leicester. So Leicester's in the middle of the country, and I worked for the museums. And if you're part of the sort of management level, you had to take part in these training days. So all the councils got together, right. And I wouldn't call it disaster training, but it explains it quite well. So if there's a big disaster, you have to go along to and help out the emergency services. And so we had a practice day, and we were at the local airport, and I had me sitting next to this lady just here, and we were in charge of the morgue. So pretend there was an air crash, and the fire service and the police and the ambulance go in, sort it all out. But then you have to have an admin backup. So me and Jill are in charge of the pretend morgue, and just chatting. Oh, what are you doing this weekend? And Jill said, oh, I'm going off ghost hunting. I'm a psychic medium. So I said to her, oh, you must come round to my museum because it's ever so haunted. And so a few days later on, Jill comes for a little walk around the museum. goes off and comes back and goes, "It's ever so haunted." I said, I know. And then, believe in fate, a few days later on, the curator, Steph Pastoris at the time, put can you remember these a memo going out across the entire site saying, how can we use the buildings at night time to raise money for the museums? So we pitched the idea of ghost events, and we did our first event 1st of April 2011, and did 9 events that year, and grew and grew and grew, and it's now a standalone business. We do about 200 events a year.
That's awesome. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, what did the museum think of the events? I was telling Gillian earlier that in Newfoundland and Labrador, places here are kind of hesitant to even admit they're haunted. Can you believe it? Because we're such a small island. Everybody's like, "Oh, I know her. Or I know where that is," and it's kind of a taboo topic here. So,
Really?
and the
Wow,
main
that's
industry,
fascinating.
yeah, and the main industry is tourism.
Yeah.
So this could
What?
really be big for a lot of facilities if they were to embrace it. So that's another reason why I wanted to bring you on and talk a little bit about it. And hopefully, maybe some people here in Newfoundland and Labrador and anywhere else in the world, whose places don't have a lot of paranormal tourism can really embrace it. So
Well,
tell
I'm
us.
going to jump in here. The museums were brilliant in the fact that, I was the operations manager, so I could just kind of get on and do things. And the museums themselves been fine, and the regional museums organisations wanted us to go on board and support them. However, the one tricky thing we actually had, we have a lot of tourism awards in the UK. And I actually sent an application in for Haunted Heritage, and it was the tourism industry that were a little bit taboo against us. I mean, if there was a conference going and I went up, I'd be the one who'd be taken to one side of their display, where the naughty customers get taken to speak to. And it took a few years, but then we did win several awards. So yeah,
Good on
we
you.
wore
Good
them
on
down,
you.
didn't we, Jill, in the end?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
That's great, guys. That's really great, Jill and Mich. I must say, I wish more people would embrace it. And unfortunately, especially in the tourism industry, a lot of people are afraid of doing it. But I know in the U.S., there's a lot of people who I interviewed who, completely embrace it. Now, there's some other folks in, shall we say, in Canada. I know we're considered Atlantic Canada, right? Then you've got what we
Okay,
call the
yeah.
mainlanders.
Mhm.
So up on the mainland, like Toronto and all those huge big areas or bigger metropolises may embrace it a bit more than us, right?
Right.
Yeah.
See, in England, we were raised with, ghost stories. I mean, like Charles Dickens, it's from a childhood, and even our pantomimes, there's always a ghost involved at some point. So it's
Right?
bizarre that people might see it as a bit
Well,
taboo. I mean,
well,
Scooby-Doo, surely.
here I said mentioned earlier, we're very Irish culture, so our folklore is very similar to the Irish folklore with the Fae and things like that. And there is a very steep superstitious stuff, and it's interesting, because we're the oldest city in North America here in St.
Ah,
John's, where we have spooks and ghosts up the wazoo. We have ghost walking tours,
yes.
things like that, but no haunted, full-on paranormal events in different places to help them with tourism, really. But tell me
Wow.
more about places that you've done and gone to.
Jill.
Well, as I've mentioned, I think England is it's a very haunted country. I mean, from, south all the way up to north, there are so many castles still left. And, we're very fortunate, I believe, to have a lot of historical places still standing. And I think, paranormal investigations and haunted locations is very, very big in the UK. There are lots of people doing it, but we're spreading our wings a little bit. So as we've mentioned, the Midlands sits smack in the middle of the UK. It's known as the
Right.
Midlands. And then, so we kind of branch out there. We do castles, we do historical buildings, Wollerton, Newstead. They're all big places, but we do little ones as well. Some significant places. I mean, Newstead is connected with Lord Byron, the poet. So we go there. Yeah, we go to airfields as well.
Prisons.
Prisons as well. So yeah, we just like to have a varied locations, and they do bring different things. They really, really do.
Do you have any experiences that you want to talk about or that stick out in your mind about different places or experiences that you've had that are kind of super scary or the opposite or even funny?
I think I think Mich and I both got our own stories, but I'll share with you one of mine and then Mich can probably share with you one of hers. I mean, as ghost hunters, if that's what you want to call us, we very, very often get asked, do we ever get scared? And it's a good question, really. And I would like to say that probably 95% of the time you don't, because you are prepared and you're looking for things, you're waiting for things. So your mindset's already off there. But there is the odd time when you are really not expecting it, and it does come and bite you in the bottom sometimes. So, you know, I've had several, but I'll share one with you. And it was at a place that is dear to us, and it's a place called Donington-le-Heath Manor House. And again, there is connections to Guy Fawkes there as well. But it was towards the end of the evening, and I said to Mich, just as I'm going back to the base room, take some equipment and use the ladies' room and come back. And bearing in mind, everywhere is dark, but I had the torch, and there are some steps that lead from stairs, should I say, that leads from one floor to another.
Right.
And as I started to climb the stairs, I heard somebody behind me walking up the stairs behind me, thinking it was one of my colleagues, and turned around and shone the torch for nobody to be there. But these footsteps was as clear as day. So I kind of hurried up a little bit and twisted around the corner to the top of the landing, and shone the torch over the stairwell, and I could still hear these footsteps coming up. Yeah, they was that clear. Yeah,
it's an uncanny feeling when you can hear it, but you can't see it.
As I said, I wasn't expecting it. I was just going from one area to another, and
catch you by surprise.
Yeah, and it just caught me. So yeah. So Mich, I'm sure you'll share yours.
Well, I'm going to share my most recent one that actually happened on Saturday night, just gone. We're in a place called Worcester, the Commandery, and it's got connections with the English Civil War. And my first group, so probably about 35 minutes in the investigation, the welcome talk, taking my group to the first area, really dark room to the point where you can't see your hands in front of your face. I'm just doing the little test things, do your environmental checks, check your floorboards for squeakiness, and, just getting everyone settled in.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there was a figure standing right in front of me, almost, parts of him were almost luminous, just bad haircut, a bit shorter than me, and a bit of a lace collar, you could say.
Yeah.
And I screamed my socks off in Latin. That took me by surprise. That did, because on that occasion I wasn't prepared, because I was still getting everyone settled in. 5 minutes into an investigation, you just don't expect that to happen. So that was a bit of a squawking moment for me.
It was like, hello, how can I help you? Yeah. Sometimes it does take you, places you go to and you think, yeah, there's not going to be anything here. And then it's like, oh, maybe there is something here for sure. Right?
Absolutely.
What about you, Jill? Do you have any psychic medium experiences that you thought, okay, or I'm probably not going to get anything, but then go in and, like Mich mentioned earlier, you were like, yeah, there's definitely something off here.
Again, far too many to talk about really on here. I'm just trying to think.
What kind of clears do you have though? Like, do you see like, all the different clears, right?
I see in the third eye, the mind's eye. I hear and feel, and I can. I get this sense of knowing. The knowing is very, very clear. And I also do something called psychometry. It's where you hold something and the energy is with that.
Okay.
So that's quite useful sometimes, especially if there's some artifacts that I can hold and pick things up from that. Again, we was at this museum, and they asked me to hold this piece of metal and asked me what I could pick up from it. So, I was coming out with areas, destinations, and it was a small part of something, bigger and so forth. And I was going through, and they were writing notes down. And it got to the stage where it had exhausted itself. But it was part of a airship.
Oh, okay.
So the information that I was picking up was pretty spot on.
That's pretty interesting that you can do that. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different gifted people out there.
Mm-hmm.
And is anybody else in your family like that too?
Yes, my daughter's sensitive, as is my son.
Okay.
They don't use it like I do, but they are very aware of it, both of them. Yeah.
They say that it follows in your family for sure.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's cool.
So it's really neat that you guys, got to meet like that and were able to stay together and been, since 2011, was it you said?
That's right, 2011, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really great. So tell us about, some of the other things for people who want to do a startup and want to do maybe some heritage public ghost hunts. Do you have anything or recommendations that you want to give from your experience?
Can I jump in here? Because back in January this year, I had a random message from a lady called Judy from Ontario, just saying, can you help me? I could do with a little bit of help. I've been reaching out to the paranormal community. I want to set up some ghost events, and literally just started chatting. We just got on very, very well, and just sharing some experiences and things to look at.
Right.
And then a few days later on, we've got a friend called Jacqueline. She runs Paranormal Path. She does podcasts over here in the UK. And she was interviewing me, and lo and behold, unbeknown to me, Judy from Ontario was watching it. The live podcast, unaware that it was me who was being interviewed. So that was a great little, across the seas connection. And of course, Judy's going to put us in touch with you guys.
Yes.
So so we've kept in touch. And as she's grown her little operation, she's asked for a bit more advice. Just things to look for, both positive things to do with the experiences and working with the venues, and also working with customers.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now they've gone off.
What ages do you invite to the public events? Is there a cutoff, or do you go from 21 and up, or 18 and up, or in the UK is that the age for like drinking and driving, 21, or is that what you consider an adult?
We're a bit younger than you.
Well, not the age of 8.
No, the UK for drinking is 18. I think it's 21 where you are, isn't it?
Yeah, some places are different, right? So
right. Yeah. Well, it's 18 here, but for the paranormal investigations, it's 18 upwards. For the ghost walks, it's 16 and
the psychic nights is 16.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have ghost walks and you have psychic nights.
Yeah.
What's the difference in all those now?
Go on, Mitch.
Right, so the walks, it is usually around 2 hours outdoors, around some old ruins, history, and we take some some paranormal detection equipment with us. An investigation is a 5 to 6 hour investigation in a building, a bit more intense, going for it. But the psychic nights, we actually have a team of about 15, 16 mediums. We've gone book a lovely venue, usually something historical and when no one else goes. And the mediums sit at a table, and there's usually 4 of them, and they'll have maybe 7 or 8 guests on each table, and they'll just do mini taster readings for them. Like go through to 3 or 4 people, and then after half an hour they go to the next table and a new person will come. So the guests will meet 4 mediums in an evening, and they'll probably have 2 or 3 readings each. So it's very light, and it's almost like the mediums get a chance to showcase who they are.
Right.
Because a lot of us spent a lot of good money going to see psychic mediums, and you might not gel with them. Where this way you get a little,
get to
meet them on that.
Yeah, because everybody got their own different techniques. Like,
Exactly.
there's so many different techniques. I know this weekend we're coming up on one. The first one here in Newfoundland actually is called the Pagan Passage Festival.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of mediums there too. So should be fun and interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that last one, the psychic walks. I haven't heard of that one before. It's almost like speed dating for psychic mediums. But and the ghost walk, I guess, is mostly just historical type things. And like you say, you do bring a little bit of some equipment with you. But for the investigation, you give 5 to 6 hours, eh?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, with the actual walks, it's not theatrical. I mean, you appreciate there's many ghost walks in the UK that are theatrical, with the heads being thrown over the walls and all the rest of it. But we're very much history and well, quite serious, I suppose, in many ways, Gillian.
Yeah, ghost stories, true ghost stories. Yeah.
Yeah. We have one here, the Haunted Hike with Dale Jarvis, and he does a great job with that and his team. I mean, they try to dress with the period, but all these stories are historical stories, so that's fun. Yeah, we do have that part here, but yeah. So what times do you bring your folks in for the investigation? Do you do all-nighters, or do you ever do any full-on all-night sleepovers? Or
no, we don't do sleepovers. We do, as I said, it's a 5-hour investigation. We do from 8 p.m. till 1 a.m. in the morning. And as Mich says, the ghost walks are around about 2 hours in various places. So it's all very, very good. Very on the ball with it all, and different techniques that we use, different areas that we go to. The guests are never in the same area, so they move around whichever venue that we have. So they're moving constantly around in every area that we have access to. And we have access to some amazing places.
Do you guys have to do disclaimers and things like that? Or, just like you said, the public, right? They always tend to get into something or other, whether somebody trips up or whatever.
Yeah. Both me and Jill work for the council for a big chunk of time. So we have been trained very, very well in standards and health and safety. And so we've kind of like carried that through into the business. So everything's risk assessed and analysed, and we're quite hot on those kind of subjects. It was interesting. We started off doing the investigations at one museum, and then when I took on another few museums, they were outdoors. So I sort of introduced the ghost walks, and it's quite different. The different types of assessments you have to do for outdoors as opposed to indoors. Indoors is quite nice and straightforward. It's just like mind your head, mind your step when you step through slow doorways, or but whereas outdoors you're putting up with badgers and wildlife and bats and frogs and
that's right. Yeah.
mud in the winter time and all those kind of things.
So I guess you do have them sign some sort of disclaimer, or no?
Well, they don't. No, we have public liability insurance, and bearing in mind, other than the ghost walks, they are working in small groups. So they're never left alone. They're never left to wander around on their own. So there's always one of our team members with them. So touch wood, we haven't had any incidents yet. Thank goodness.
Is there any other stories or things that stick out in your mind that you want to share about some of your investigations? Or
well, I just want to flag something, because we do a lot of things with the historical sites, and you might have heard of this guy called Richard III. He was found under a car park a few years ago in England. A past king from a few years ago. Quite a famous battle that we do a ghost walk there. And earlier on this year, Jill was contacted to go and do some filming for a few days with Sky History, weren't you, Jill?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, as Mitch said, we the Battle of Bosworth and the famous or infamous Richard III. Obviously, was the battle took place, and there was a new concept that had been thought through with a psychic medium from London, and it's called battlefield trauma. So the theory is that wherever something of great disaster or whatever took place, in this case a
Right.
battlefield, that the trauma is still left behind.
Right.
And so the concept and the understanding was, can that field or that area be rid of that trauma, or is it still retained there in the earth? It's a bit like a residual. So residual energies that have left through that trauma, the event that took place.
Right.
But anyway, Sky History of doing a pilot program, and hopefully it's followed through with some other stories of battles across the UK. But the pilot one was filmed at Bosworth on the battlefield, and they invited us to go along because we do our historical ghost walks there. So yeah, it was a good 2-day filming for Sky History Channel, and
it was quite a nice mix, because there was the ghost walk company there. There was the historians from the site. There was another historian was there who wrote about the actual battle from a different aspect,
Right.
and then there was this healer guy. So everyone was giving different, views on the whole subject. So that was quite curious, you could say.
So their theory was that they could get rid of the actual trauma that was, I guess, like you say, steeped into the earth or wherever, because that is a common theme for sure.
No,
So
it
they,
is. Yeah.
yeah,
You didn't realise how big that. It wasn't until I was talking to them, and there was mentioning famous things that's happened, or disasters or tragedies that's happened across the land.
What was their theory on like how to get rid of it? Like at that point?
Well, as Mitch said, this gentleman was a psychic medium, and he was also a earth healer. So he carried out some certain rituals once they thought they'd identified where the actual battle took place.
Okay.
And that was through picking it up on mediumship and energies and evidence that they got from relics that had been found in this particular area. He would then set about doing some, rituals to heal the land.
Okay.
Which he did. And it was, in all honesty, it was a privilege to be part of it. It was very, very different, the whole healing process. And it was, with the group that did the actual filming as well. It was so different. It was tangible.
I'm sure there was a lot of unmarked graves and things like that happened way back then,
Yeah. So, but yeah, very, very interesting, and a privilege to be invited to do it. So
I found it curious in the fact that the curator on site was basically saying, well, the land has cured itself. The crops are growing, the trees are here, all that you can see. And this guy was very much, yes, but it's underneath and it's still, it's got a different vibration. And if the land was healed, then the corn will be more vibrant, the trees will be fuller, it's all these things. Oh, fair comment. It's a bit like the stone tape theory, but with a bit more oomph to it.
Yeah, that is an interesting theory for sure. I mean, I fully believe that, places like that who haven't been recognized, or everything is all grown over and everybody forgot about it. Maybe they just want to be remembered somehow. Like, maybe they're stuck on some astral plane that we don't know about or understand.
Yeah.
And
but
that,
it's grounds like that become haunted.
Right.
I mean, we call it's a residual haunting.
Yes.
If there is a trauma of, as I said, the Battle of Bosworth and the ground that was on, it's still there. And this is where
Right.
people of many, many incidents have seen soldiers on horseback. So
Mhm.
they're just reliving that. That's what we call a residual haunting.
Residual. Yeah. It's almost like a film replaying itself over and over. Like they don't see you, or
Yeah,
they won't acknowledge you or anything, but you can see them going about their business and doing
that's
whatever
exactly correct.
they're
That's
Yeah,
doing,
exactly
right?
yeah.
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 We do some work with De Montfort University, and we do special tours with them. And the security staff at the complex now keep their own ghost book of bizarre things that have occurred. And Stephen, one of our friends who works at the university, told us a lovely story. He had a phone call one day because he'd gone to see, I think it was the name Alison, one of the cleaners in the local church, which is connected to the De Montfort University. Beautiful, stunning. You could walk in there and you go, wow, it's amazing, this place. And she'd been cleaning. So Steve went over to see her. And apparently she was just mopping away on the floor, minding her own business, about 8 o'clock in the morning, just doing her thing.
Right.
And she heard it's like a flap, flap, flap of like plimsolls or soft-soled shoes running towards her. And a young lad in period clothing. It's a university. She just thought it's one of the students,
Right.
as students do, a bit of messing about, ran towards her, skidded to a halt, stared at her with a look of shock on his face, and then just disappeared straight in front of her. And the way that she described it is as if he had seen a ghost.
I was gonna say, yeah, she surprised him. I've
Yeah.
heard some other people talk about that theory too, how we can surprise them because
Mm.
they don't realize, oh, they just saw me.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Great.
That theory is very interesting too. So for the folks watching, tell us or tell them where they can follow Haunted Heritage and how they can reach out to you if they want to know more information and your socials and everything.
Right, over to you, Jill.
Wow, you're on the social side. You spill that.
Okay, so we're Haunted Heritage Paranormal Events. We are on Facebook and we are on Instagram. We've got 2 Facebook pages. The first one is like our shop window, the events that are coming up. But if you join the Haunted Heritage guest page, that's where we'll put all the good stuff, the stuff that we don't share in public. So hop on there and follow us.
Yes, and I'll go ahead and put your link tree up also on the description so folks can find all your socials. And
Brilliant.
thanks so much.
We did have a young lady that came to Highbury all the way from New York.
Oh, you did?
Yes, we did. She that's what she loves doing. So whenever she was taking any time off from work, she would come over to England and do some ghost hunting.
I was wondering about that. Have you ever done any collabs with anybody? Did anybody ever come to your place or vice versa? Or do you have any plans to go visit another country? Or
There was that other gentleman, wasn't it? Was he from Germany, Mitch? The one that went
No,
to...
yeah, a guy came over from Holland because he's related to Lord Byron. But that lady that you spoke about just in Highbury Hall, as a special treat for herself, she hired Oxford Castle for the whole night all by herself.
oh, wow.
Yeah, madness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, we haven't done any collabs at all. And we just haven't gone overseas to do any ghost hunting. We are really, really spoiled. And one of the things that we haven't told you, that we actually have a castle on our doorstep. And not
You
many
would
people
love
can say that.
St. John's. We have Signal Hill here, where Marconi got his first well, I guess I think the Titanic also sent out a signal, and
Yeah.
yeah. So we that's the one castle I can think of that we have here. I know there's another house somebody built somewhere that looks like a castle, but but we were there actually one night just messing around, with spirit box or whatever. But we got some really cool stuff up there, events that transpired where the other people didn't know what I got on my spirit box when they were over there doing their events. And it was very interesting because of both of them paired up. It was like, wow, while you were doing this, I was getting that. So
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Because Jill went and caught a brilliant EVP. It was a few years ago now. It was before 2012. I'm going to say probably 20. I can't remember now actually. And we were in this one particular building, and Jill was doing an event, and it's posted on the website somewhere, isn't it? And Jill's calling out, and through the spirit box, you get this name, Richard. And of course, this connection with King Richard III of England, with this venue we were at. And we had to sit on it because I was working for the museums at the time. And I knew that there was a dig was going to be taking place to try and find his body. And I didn't want it to. It put me in a really awkward situation with work, basically. So we sat on it. And of course, then when he was actually, the body was discovered, and then the press got hold of it, didn't it? And then it went a bit global. So that was quite an interesting moment in our
Yes, for
business
sure.
history.
To get that kind of an EVP, that's, substantial like that, for sure.
Mm,
Well, I want to
absolutely.
thank you both again for being on the show tonight. And I'm sure all the fans and everybody really appreciated you coming on and talking a little bit about, the haunted heritage and how you go about doing your different events.
Brilliant.
And
Thank you.
everybody follow Haunted Heritage on all their socials. Look for Mich, look for Jill. And thanks again and all the best. And I'm going to stop the recording, but we'll do just a quick off-air wrap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.